Just ask the panel, do they believe in climate change?
Given the fact we've just had an incredibly cold winter, does the panel believe that there is such a thing as climate change?
I certainly do believe. I think the majority of the countries in the world support the need to tackle climate change. I think our current Minister for the Environment, Sammy Wilson's methods in terms of stopping some of the advertising to that would run parallel to what runs in Britain to tackle climate change. I think it was maybe wrong. It sends out the wrong message, for the Minister for Environment. So I do support the need to tackle climate change, and I do think we need a Minister for Environment that supports that platform. So.
I've just started reading a book called What on Earth Happened, and it's something like 75 billion years ago, and the climate was definitely significantly different, and indeed much warmer then. So the question is, to what extent is it man-made? And I don't know. I just don't know the scientific arguments. I know that, like a lot of things, one scientist will tell you it's black, and the other scientist will tell you it's white. And I'm not a scientist, and I just don't have the knowledge. A lot of it makes logical kind of sense to me, that we should look at certain things, but we go through ice ages and heat waves and blah, blah, blah. God created this world, all right? It's a beautiful, beautiful world. We have a duty to look after it, to take care of it, to do the very, very best. And I don't think it's too much to ask not to be wasteful, to be mindful of other people, to take care of things, because it's our duty to do so. I think that's pretty straightforward. And to me, it doesn't even get into any of that. I just personally think that we've got a beautiful, beautiful world, and we should be doing an awful lot better by it. And I know that sounds deadly naive, and I apologise, but I'm sticking by it. I think it's what we should be doing.
It's not for us maybe all to know exactly whether it's man-made or woman-made or not, but as David said, I think if it starts a debate about how we use our resources that we have in the world and how we have a very ill-divided world, I think that's a great thing. And I think if we can get to the point where we in the West and in the successful industrialised Northern Hemisphere can be more responsible about what we do with our resources and are forced to put some imagination into alternative forms of energy, then I'm all for it.
We all, through life, try to look after things, our environment, as best we can for people who maybe come after us. But a lot of the people who are really foaming at the mouth, and regardless of your stance on man-made climate change, you're not going to find very many people going to the likes of developing countries where, admittedly, we're here trying to change our behaviour to internalise the externalities that our lifestyle creates with pollution and various things. But to go off to India and China and Southern America and tell those people whose pollution will be stretching a century, the damage is incomparable. I think maybe that'll be a more salient point to try and focus on.
What does the panel think of the offer of a payment to victims' relatives as a recommendation from the Eames-Bradley Consultative Group?
Let me preface by remarks that the Commission for Victims and Survivors, which is separate from the consultative group in the past who have made the recommendation, my three colleagues there was a vote, 3-1, it ended up. So the Commission for Victims and Survivors supports the payment of £12,000. I am the one, and I do not support it. And the reasons I do not support it are quite complicated, but it begins with I believe that what we need to do in terms of looking after the victims and survivors of our conflict is address their need. So you go forward, and it's not easy, but we've got to move forward, individual by individual, victim by victim, survivor by survivor. And to do that, we have to start by listening. Because if we don't listen, we will not understand, and if we don't understand, we will not react properly. So what we have to do is take a blank sheet of paper and try and put on 2 columns, just 2 columns. On the left-hand column, you want a list of their needs, and it can be like an alphabet, an ABC, acknowledgement, befriending, counselling, and so it goes on through trauma, etc., etc. The difficult thing to do is the right-hand column, where you put the concrete, the really robust numbers. How many people actually want to be acknowledged? How many people need befriending? How many people need counselling? How many people need trauma advice? How many people need to have their story told, saved, and presented? So one size fits all doesn't work. So for that basis, I am against this universal recognition payment. If somebody needs that £12,000, of course they should have it. But maybe they need 24,000, maybe they need 36, maybe they need 48. We have to go individual by individual. Plus, 3,500 people roughly died. And it's the families of those people who are going to get this money if it ever goes through. But over 40,000 people were physically injured, and the majority of them are still alive. What did they get? And what about the psychologically traumatized? How many? We will never know how many there are, but it's a lot more than 40,000 people. It might be 1 million, might be 1.5 million. You could be traumatized by our conflict never having been on the island of Ireland, simply by switching on the TV the day the Oma bomb was being reported on NBC in America or ABC in Sydney. That could traumatize you. And finally, in terms of the many support groups for victims and survivors, I am trying to encourage the government to look again at the way they fund them, because they tend to fund them on a short-term annual basis. And there are a lot of difficulties with that, which I needn't go into, but what I'm trying to say is we need more sustained funding for the groups. We need more sustained funding for individuals, so I would favour some sort of enhanced pension arrangement, ongoing, rather than the one-off lump sum. And there are about 40 other reasons I don't like it, but that's the basis of it.
Did you think it was unfortunate that the issue of the payment obscured the other parts of the report?
Extremely, yeah, because there's some good stuff in Eames Bradley, and they're trying to address the fundamental issues, and to a certain extent, the recognition payment is it's a peripheral issue in terms of what they're trying to say is that we should have a 5-year window in which we try to, as best as we can, resolve everything. And that is a much bigger set of subjects than the one-off payment. But they briefed the media, they put it out into the public domain, and they got the reaction they got.
I was thinking about this earlier, thinking this would probably come up, and it struck me that Eames Bradley and whoever else made the decision on the 12,000 must be the only people in Northern Ireland who thought it was a good idea. It seems to have been universally panned. I don't see the point of it. Just discussing it with some people the other day, we were wondering how do you work it out? Who does it go to? The closest relative? Who is the closest relative? I think you make a great point about the number of people who aren't killed, who are maimed. You know, you've said it all really there. So I think the £12,000 thing was in a hiding to nothing. Again, I mean, we could go on to the bigger subject of the whole idea of victims, and I know the word survivors is now used a lot. It's not an easy subject to deal with, and it's not something I think you can wrap up in 5 years either. But again, it comes back to some of the other subjects we've touched on tonight in terms of what the imaginative approach is. Northern Ireland, I think, could become a beacon and a benchmark for great emotional intelligence. We have the possibility now to create a very imaginative possible way of looking at things, and you know, that's going to take a commitment from a lot of people to say, can we give up our victim culture? And I think we wear our victimhood like a bit of a blanket sometimes here. I think we have been kept very young in our outlook on life, and young in a childish way. I think our reliance on London, all that sort of thing, has led to a kind of cultural identity at some level where we're neither one thing nor another. And I think I probably said this before, I think it is a great opportunity for us all to grow up and take a bit more charge of what we want our future to look like in every way, politically, culturally, socially, environmentally. And I think we have we're like Germany after the Second World War. You know, we have sort of got a chance to leapfrog over a lot of the mistakes. Some guy, you made a comment about the education. We have the chance to make, I think, a leapfrog and learn from a lot of mistakes that have been made.